How's it going, everybody? And welcome to Tech Support Thursday, Ticket 1. This is going to be kind of an Ask Me Anything kind of deal, where if you have a question, you can go through and deal with any of the things that pop up. So, yes, I know a ticket usually is one problem, but guess what? It's my idea, so we're going to be covering multiple problems. So, because a ticket can have a thread, right? There we go. The idea here is if you have questions that you need answers to on the channel, you can comment below on this video, or you can go through and I will read questions off that I've received before, comments and things like that. So I'm just going to read through the comments. They'll be anonymous. So I'll read off where the video came from, or the comment came from, which video came from, and what the question is, and I'll try to do my best to answer that. Sometimes my answers won't be as, spot on as I would like. Maybe it will cause me to do a little bit of research. The point being is that I do read the comments, I do read the questions, and I'm going to try to answer them. They may only get a couple questions throughout the week, but I will still try to do my best to answer them and provide some context and try to help you guys out. So, thanks for stopping by on Tech Support Thursday. It will get released on Friday. So, sometime Friday. I was going to call it Tech Support Friday, but that actually doesn't ring a bell very well. So, anyway, hope you guys enjoy. I take questions that I get from the channel that maybe I've responded to them, maybe I haven't. Some of them, it's kind of hit or miss depending on what's happening, and do my best to try to answer them and as clear and concise of a manner as I can. And the cool thing about it is that these are a lot of the questions that I'm getting are repetitive. So I'm hoping to, by doing this on a regular basis, that you could get your answer that way. So I will put in the video here. I'll put somewhere probably over here on the green screen a couple of different ways to get a hold of me if you have questions. Obviously, you have the ability of just commenting on a video and asking a question there. You could also go to Twitter and @RikerRob and be like, hey, I got a question about this, and I'll be happy to try to answer that. I'd stay away from email because honestly I don't check it that often. So Twitter and YouTube, I'm usually in the YouTube studio quite a bit as I'm analyzing what's going on. So I will read off a few questions and I will try to edit the video so they're one on top of the other. So I will hopefully answer questions as we're going along here. I won't name people, but I will. I'll say the video that the question was posted to, and hopefully this will help answer some questions. So first and foremost, this one came in yesterday off of SD-WAN video 3, where we get the VPN's overview and the SD-WAN controllers setup video. So, hi Rob, really like the way you explain things. I have managed to set up my lab for SD-WAN. I have imported the certificate authority, or CA, on vManage and vSmart, but I am not able to add on vEdge and vBond. From vBond and vEdge, I can ping the CA certificate authority router, but when I do TFTP, I cannot see any activity on CA router, although I don't get any error on vBond when I issue the TFTP command. I have tried two versions, 16.2 and 18.4, but no luck. Any thoughts? So initially I don't, because you've got reachability. That's the key thing. Reachability is there. What you can do, and I'd have to look it up, but hopefully I can provide a little bit of context. I haven't answered this question. That's why it's the first one that I'm reading. There is a way to copy from vManage to your vBond and vEdge, but understand the vBond is a vEdge. It's been configured to be a vBond. So you literally, you tell it to be a vBond is the process. So initially I don't have. My question would be, did you pull these root CA certificate from the CA via TFTP, or did you generate the certificate, the root certificate, on the CA router, which is just an iOS router running as a CA server? And did you copy and paste that into the GUI of vManage? That's how I did it, and it worked out pretty well, because when you're doing vBond, you don't do that. I don't remember the exact steps. I'd have to do a little bit of research to remember exactly how that process went. But if I remember correctly, specifically when it's the C or the root certificate, when you have to add the vBond and the vSmart through the web GUI. And so when you add those in and you do the synchronization, it automatically pushes the root certificate down to those devices. So if you're trying to get the identity certificate, where you generate the CSR on the vBond, that's no different than how you would do it on the vEdge, from what I remember. I could be wrong in specifics, but I will try my best to try to I'll look that process up and maybe help you out with that. But that's initially my thought. It's as long as the connectivity is there, it should work. Because when I did it, it was you're in the V shell and you're copying the commands, and you're doing like a TFTP download. And as long as there's IP connectivity, it automatically pulls it down, and you can debug TFTP or debug CA, and it'll give you that output. So I'll have to follow up with you on that one. This one comes from the VMFS, the VMware File System Overview. Great info on VMFS. Cheers. Thank you. Appreciate that. Another one coming in. Oh boy, this is a long one. On the Linux VM deployment and VMware tools install, VMware DCB 9. Great video, Rob. Finally catching up with my lab to this video. Current setup: Dell R720, 256 gigs of RAM, 32 logical cores with 3 separate RAID data store tiers. 1 4x SSD, so 4 SSDs in first tier 1, so that's just high performance. Tier 2, 4 drive RAID 10, so he's doing striping and parity at the same time, or striping and mirroring at the same time on 4 drives. And then you have a tier 3 2-drive mirror, which I believe would be the RAID 0, RAID 1. I can never remember specifically which one's a mirror, which one's a stripe. Also just started building my second host, same setup, less memory, 128 gigs. Any plans for setting up firewall inside the lab or a security onion setup? This are again some of my long-term interests. Thanks again for the great content. I know it takes a lot. It takes time to make all this. Cheers from the island. I'm gonna guess you're from the UK or maybe Hawaii. I don't know, but hey, cool. Anyway, thanks anyways. Or maybe you're down in the Caribbean. I honestly don't know, but my goal is with that. So he's referencing in VMware Workstation with the data center series of videos that I'm doing to go through and deploy another VM that will act as a default gateway. That is a plan. I've tried testing some things out, but I've never been able to get the routers to sync up. So still working on that. Hopefully that'll get figured out here rather soon. All right, so another question from I get a lot of questions on SD-WAN stuff. So, hi Rob, got an interesting question. Before I raise the question, I would like to let you know I got a DNS server running on my lab, controllers using vBond domain name to find vBond, but vEdge is all using vBond IP. That works good in CLI mode. When I apply the device template followed by your video, the template changed vEdge's vBond IP to vBond domain name automatically. Because I do not set primary DNS on vEdge's template, so it cannot reach vBond domain name. Results, all control connections down. This is a bad thing. And if your control connections are down, that's a bad thing. I don't find a place to enable my change VBond domain to IP on device feature template. And if there is no place to change that Y once I apply the templates, it changes my VBond configs. I honestly don't know, because I never tried it that way. So typically speaking, if you're going to be doing that, and I did respond to this question, I forgot about that. But what normally is going to end up happening is that when you go that direction with it and you're trying to do a DNS lookup, you're typically going to be trying to deploy zero-touch provisioning, where you do just a little bit of initial, say, a deployment config or a bootstrap config, where you configure your vEdges with just enough information to call home. It's basically what you're doing. You do a call home, and it automatically finds the DNS information, and it knows where to point, and before you know it, it's got all the information that it needs. I don't remember there being a template for that. Could be wrong, though. I never tried it. So I honestly don't know, and I did respond to that. I don't know if that fixed your problem, but that's basically what I would, that's one way to do it. I never did it that way with ZTP, Zero Touch Provisioning. So I would recommend, I get where you're going with it, and it's a good idea. But in a situation like this, I'd actually recommend taking away the DNS server until you've gone through all the main things that I covered in my series, and then focus on ZTP, because that's more of an advanced capability. Now, if you want to test this out because you have a legit use case for maybe you're doing a proof of concept for your job or a customer, hey, more power to you. Just remember that my deployment was supposed to be completely 100% on-prem, not using the cloud at all. So this would basically be like having public IPs associated to the right devices in a data center that I own the IP address space to. So where I wouldn't, and the IP addresses for all of my management devices would be static, right? I would own the address space. All the devices would be static. I wouldn't need to go through and deal with any of that. ZTP, I know, doesn't work quite that way. So I honestly don't know. I never tried that out. I would like to, at some point in time, circle back and dive deeper into SD-WAN, but zero-touch provisioning is more of an advanced deployment method, and it's just to get things up and running. It's not necessarily, it's just a way to onboard more zero-touch, right? Instead of you having to do everything manually, you can configure a script, right? You can create an actual script to get your vBond online and just do a copy and paste. That'll work too. I did that a couple times, but I couldn't get the script to be 100% dialed in just by a copy and paste, and boom, I was good. There was a little bit of still manual intervention needed. So if that's what you're trying to get away from, I do know another, Lab Minutes has a couple good videos on zero-touch provisioning. I think you might want to go check them out, because he actually does get it to work. But I don't remember the details as to how that comes into play. I'll see if I can't find it in the video and respond to your comment, but beyond that, I honestly really don't know. Okay, so this is an older video. Security VPN, IPv2, LAN to LAN, iOS router with crypto maps. What did you use to make that diagram? And what he's referring to is the diagram is I use EVE-NG for all of my my Cisco networking stuff. I use EVE-NG throughout. I don't use GNS3. I don't use anything else. I used to use ESXi OVAs and just deploy VMs in my hypervisor, and then I would go through and connect them through a vSwitch, .1Q trunking, and then I'd be off to the races. I don't do that anymore. I use EVE-NG for everything. So there is no technical diagram, right? I don't make whatever you drag and drop your equipment out, and however you wire it up, that becomes the diagram. And then you can take that, and I would use the web UI that you connect to on the Eve server, and then I use that to be my diagram, and I whiteboard on top of it. That's literally all I do. Let's see here. So this comment comes from how to install a CSR 1000V in EVE-NG. Can't download the ISO file from Cisco. Don't have a service contract for that router. I do have the QCOW2 file from the CML, but that's not enough, I noticed. It actually is. So if you have the QCOW2 file, then make sure you download the one that's got the, what do they call it, the serial console option, and it bypasses all the complicated pieces of the ISO version. The ISO version is a pain in the butt to get working in EVE. It literally is. There's lots of little steps that you have to go through. And once I figured out how to do it and I got it working and it was operational, I literally copied the entire folder off of EVE onto my my library of QCOW2 files so that I would never have to go through that crap again. And then one day I just felt like I was recording a video on it because I had gotten a lot of questions on it, so I went ahead and went through that. So if you have the QCOW2 file, download the one that's got the serial console associated to it, and you'll be good to go. This one comes from Cisco ASA Basics 1, the initial configuration setup. On route management command, who is 10.255.10.x? I get this question a lot too, because it's not a subnet that's listed on the topology, so it throws people off. And the answer to your question is, that's my home subnet. Nothing more than that. I'm 10.255.10 is my PC's network, PC and Wi-Fi. And what I ended up doing was, in order for my local computer to connect to the ASA inside of EVE, I needed to create a route to point back to my home subnet. Nothing more than that. Okay. This one comes from Cisco CCNP Encore and RC EIGRP Video 9, EIGRP Summarization. Nice training. Please, which tools are you using to enable you right and on the screen? Looking to have a setup for myself. I use an application known as Ink2Go, and it's I think it's like 10 or 15 bucks. So you get that, and then it allows you to draw or annotate on the screen, and it's just overlay. So you can literally just draw on whatever's on the background. So whatever your background is, whether it's a web page, Google Doc, you pick your background. It could be literally anything that's on your any application that shows up on a display. You can literally just whiteboard on top of it. It's a very, very cool process. Okay, so this next question comes from, let's talk about Palo Alto, layer 2 VLANs. So, sorry, which CPU and how much RAM does your PC have? So, this question I get a lot, actually, and the answer to the question is I have 3 main servers. Actually 2 now. I decommissioned my IBM. I just powered it down. It wasn't worth having on because the CPUs are just so old. So, I run Cisco UCSC series, specifically 220 M3s. I usually pick them up between $300 and $500, depending on what the specs are, and they work out really, really well. So when I went through and bought them, if I'm going to be running EVE instances on them, I'm going to get as much RAM as I can, even though technically speaking the RAM is kind of irrelevant. I typically shoot for 128 gigs of RAM in my servers, and I try to get an E5. What are they? Actually, I don't remember. Let me pull this up real quick and log into. I've got a vCenter deployment, so I'm just going to go take a peek at what the CPU version is, because I honestly don't remember. It's E5 26 something. So in this host right here. So currently my servers are Intel Xeon CPUs E5 2660 at 2.2 gigahertz. So if you buy a host with 2 physical CPUs, which would be two sockets, and each CPU has 8 cores, then you basically have two 8-core CPUs, which gives you 16 cores, and if you enable hyper-threading, that gives you 32. So that's basically what I did there. So you get 32 logical processors. It gives you a lot of compute. It gives you a lot of compute. So that's what I buy. I buy UCS servers, M3. So another funny part about this is when I go through and I go and do the, what was I going to say? I completely lost my train of thought. All right, so I completely spaced out on one of my thought process. So I actually had to go back and watch the video to figure out what it was I needed to talk about. And basically what I wanted to make mention of is back in, I think it was the mid of January, I bought the 3 new UCS C220 M3s. And our friends over at Java decided to basically work with Microsoft and make Java unusable at this point in time. So for whatever reason, they thought it'd be a great idea to put to turn on the kill switch. Java, you suck. Seriously, you suck. Yeah, I was not happy about that. So point being is I had to figure out a way to log into my UCS servers through the SimC, because it's, unless you have the GUI, the CLI is trash. Straight up, it's trash. I ran into so many problems with the CLI. It was like, okay, can I mount this? Can I do that? No, it's like, it completely pissed me off. So I spent a few days trying to figure that out. Did a lot of Google searches. And fortunately, there had been people that had already been through the process and had come up with some solutions. So the solution that I came up with was, I just basically used somebody else's idea. So I have an older Windows 10 PC. It's actually my older computer that hasn't been updated in a while. So it's got an older version of Flash. Version 23, I believe, is what it was. So I installed another web browser on it called Pale Moon. And Pale Moon went through and I was able to access all the servers, and it doesn't care about the Flash setup. It's just like, meh, whatever. So Firefox, Chrome, Edge, they all squawk and throw a hissy fit about it. So I'm like, I need to log into these servers and work with them. So I can log into all 3 of my servers through the SimC and access them. Now, I also have access to a Cisco UCS C240 M4. And because the M4, the 240, I'm not sure when the time cutoff comes into play, but there is a version of the SimC software that puts you on 4.x code that you use HTML as your connection method and not Java, so you don't have that problem. So as soon as you upgrade the SimC to be the newest version, you end up using HTML in order to access the SimC and not Java, so you don't lose functionality. The KVM still works, you can still access the server, all that type of stuff. So just some things to keep in mind in the back of your head as you're playing around with this. So in the event that you run into a problem, it doesn't become a problem at that point. So I use Pale Moon and an older version of Java. You might have to find a pirated version of it. I do know of a couple of scenarios where Java being the pain in the other end, I don't like to cuss on the channel, and being a complete and utter pain in my butt, turning off the capability. It's like, Java, you're not that big and bad. It really pissed me off when they did that, because it was like, okay, now I'm behind the curveball, and I had to figure out a way to get around it. I figured out a way to get around it through reading some blog posts and some tickets that people have put out there. And I saw some of the solutions. I tried them. Boom, they worked for me too. So that's where I wanted to go with that. So, all right. So that wraps it up for Tech Support Thursday. It will be released sometime on Friday. So there you go with that. So, yeah. Hopefully this will... I will take any questions that come in during the week. I don't know how many questions I'll have. Maybe it's only a couple. Maybe I just give some suggestions, some recommendations. I'm trying to change it up a little bit and be a little bit different on the channel. No VMware releases. There will be no technical videos released that day. I'm just trying to change it up so we have something to look forward to on Friday. So if you guys have any questions that you would like to get answered or anything like that, definitely leave a comment in the comment section below of the video, and I will. It's probably going to be where most of them come from. It's going to be on the Tech Support Thursday and all of that good stuff. If you have any questions for me, please leave a comment in the comment section below. Please like, share, and subscribe if you haven't already done so, and I will catch all of you next week for the next installment of Tech Support Thursday. You guys take it easy, have a nice weekend, and please stay safe.